Hey, everybody. Welcome to New York State Manufacturing Now, the podcast that's powered by FuzeHub. I'm your host, Steve Melito. Today, we're talking to David Pietrocola, the co-founder and CEO of Cohesive Robotics, a New York City-based company that's making it easy for manufacturers to add robotics to their high-mix sanding, grinding, and polishing operations. In 2023, Cohesive Robotics was awarded a $50,000 FuzeHub Manufacturing Grant in partnership with ITAC, the New York MEP Center for New York City. The goal is to get the company's smart finishing robotic work cell system onto more production floors sooner. David, welcome to New York State Manufacturing Now.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So, David, tell us about yourself. How did you become interested in robotics and automation? And is it true that you're a former CIA tech officer?
Yeah, great questions. Yeah, I actually started my interest in robotics back in college. My alma mater, Trinity College, over in Hartford, Connecticut, had a very well-known robotics competition. This was before FIRST robotics became very popular. And so a lot of the curriculum in the engineering program was based around that and robotics. And I definitely developed a love for robotics and that technology. And then trying to see how you could take it from the lab and develop more products and, getting more robotics into different parts of our daily life. So yeah, that started the passion. Like any other career, and especially technical discipline, it definitely has its highs and lows and exciting times and frustrating times. It's been a very exciting journey. And yes, part of my journey was I did spend a stint at the CIA. So it was very exciting. I was very privileged to have that opportunity. And essentially I was, coming out of grad school, working in the defense sector and had the opportunity to kind of switch roles from contractor into civilian and be a federal employee and a tech officer in the CIA in the Directorate of Science and Technology. If you're familiar with the movie Argo, that office, OTS, is where I was based out of. And can't talk too much more about what we actually did there, but it's a great movie. Definitely check that out. And I had really exciting time to develop exciting, complex technical solutions to advancing the national security mission. And so, it was a good experience in my career, and I'm very grateful for having that.
It's an amazing thing to have on your resume, I must say. So why did you start your own company, Cohesive Robotics? I mean, you could have probably worked for one of the leading robot OEMs instead. You could have done a lot of things.
For sure. Well, Steve, I grew up in Putnam County in the Hudson Valley, and I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household. Both my parents are Italian immigrants and basically came to the New York City area and started a business from nothing into something very successful business in the metal supplies space. And so I kind of grew up in that world, small business, hustling, trying to make something happen. And I've always wanted to marry that experience with my technical training, my formal training in college and graduate school. And so certainly during COVID, there was a lot of discussion about reshoring and disrupted supply chains and all those issues. And having gone through deploying a lot of advanced robotic systems into larger manufacturers, we deployed systems. I was on teams that deployed systems over to Mercedes factories, Tesla Gigafactory, Walgreens logistics centers. We weren't really seeing a lot of that packaged in a way that was accessible and even affordable to smaller manufacturers. And so there's this gap there. And I felt that, I was in a good position to see if we could develop something that could be more accessible to manufacturers and really, drive more automation adoption to the smaller and medium-sized enterprises. So that kind of was the impetus for it. We were seeing the big robot OEMs still very much focused on large manufacturers, high volume, automotive. And, by seeing a lot of the technical trends emerging and that gap, that's why we definitely set off on this mission, this journey here.
Sure. Now, you've got a pretty interesting product, the Smart Finishing Work Cell. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so the Smart Finishing Work Cell is our first product that we've taken to market. It combines a lot of the technology we've developed in autonomous 3D vision scanning. So it allows a operator to place parts into this work cell. The 3D camera scans the piece, uses some information provided by the operator on what we're trying to do in this particular job or process, and then it programs that robot on the fly. So we take our software, we combine it with off-the-shelf hardware. That's mainly, the industrial collaborative robots, the 3D camera, other off-the-shelf industry-proven hardware. We package that up into a turnkey, accessible solution for smaller manufacturers. And, we've been taking that to market as our first product. Our technology can be applied to other applications, but our first effort here is to look at finishing and solving that problem, which is a particular pain point for a lot of manufacturers today.
Yeah, that's good. I wanted to ask you more about that. Why focus on these operations and not, say, assembly or welding or something else? What is it about surface improvement that is compelling for robotics?
And that's a great question. I mean, we've seen a lot of exciting developments across different manufacturing processes, whether it's welding or assembly or palletizing, right? And those are all really important and great that we're seeing more solutions in those spaces. But when we were getting started and we were visiting, and even now when we visit manufacturers, often they might even have automation today, right? They might be doing welding robots. They might be having CNC, laser cut, or on the downstream operation with palletizing. But oftentimes we'd get to the finishing department and it would just kind of be this black box. It's very manual for a lot of manufacturers still today. Production insights are kind of limited. You don't know how long it might take product to get through a finishing department. There could be a lot of rework associated with that department. Some manufacturers could have rework as high as 50, 60, 70%, requiring some sort of rework once it gets to the finishing department. And that's a problem. That becomes a big bottleneck for these manufacturers. And so even if they're automating other processes, they're still not actually able to ship products, get it out the door and increase their production capacity. So we felt it was important to start there, to try and solve that problem with our first product. And then from there, we expect to, with our product roadmap, to move into serving other processes that manufacturer might need to solve.
Got it. So, of course, robotics costs money. But besides cost, why do you think that more manufacturers aren't automating their operations? What are the obstacles?
Well, certainly the capital is part of it. But beyond that, I think it's important to look at, it's often one of two things, possibly both. But one is, adopting automation often requires all the stakeholders at that company to be aligned. And I think that's especially important for smaller and medium-sized manufacturers where they may not necessarily have a dedicated automation team, internally. And often that's the case. I mean, maybe you have one or two people looking at process improvement, bringing in new machinery and automation. But typically, right, the smaller the company, less likely they're going to have certainly dedicated resources for that. You might have a fraction of an FTE looking into those solutions. So, when you introduce automation, right, just like any other big change to your organization, to a shop floor, workflows might change. IT integrations might be needed. Certainly safety is a consideration. Maintenance schedules will change. And so I think it's just like any other organizational change, it requires that buy-in, that planning. And when you're just trying to keep up with your production, certainly that falls by the wayside sometimes. So it takes time to make that a priority. And then secondly, I'd say is on the education front. Certainly what's possible today, 5 to 10 years ago, when we're talking about introducing more robotics into high mix manufacturing, we wouldn't be having that conversation today. I think there's been a lot of advances. Technology has become much more capable. Certainly, even the discussions with AI today are going to accelerate things even more. And so, as solution providers, technology companies, it's on us to help educate more and more, working with more manufacturers, organizations like FuzeHub and the MEPs to make sure that manufacturers are staying abreast of all these changes and what's possible, what might be hype, right? I think that's another consideration as well, to make sure that they're adopting technology that solves their business needs, and it's not just some hype or some YouTube demo out there.
Right. So, David, earlier in the podcast, I mentioned that you partnered with ITAC on a FuzeHub Manufacturing Grant. And of course, I want everybody to know about FuzeHub and everybody to know about New York MEP, including and especially their regional centers. But some manufacturers, some companies aren't even aware that the MEP system exists. How did you connect with ITAC?
Yeah, we were very fortunate to make that connection and appreciative of how FuzeHub played a role in that. And essentially, we were talking about FuzeHub early on, and we were introduced to Kinda and her team at ITAC since we are based in New York City. So, I think they're doing great work helping manufacturers in what's a challenging environment in New York City, certainly with that, high cost of living and, expensive real estate and all those other things that go with being, downstate, particularly in the city. And so, we were fortunate, the manufacturing grant application had opened up in early 2023. And then Patty from FuzeHub was, suggested that, hey, this might be a good fit. We were kind of beyond the prototype stage. We were looking to go to market, to accelerate our design for manufacturing and making sure our work cell could go into a production environment. And so, we were able to partner up with ITAC and submit a successful grant. I've been able to help others in the ecosystem at the Brooklyn Navy Yard to apply for those as well. So it's been a good experience. We're very, very grateful to FuzeHub and the larger ecosystem for supporting that.
I'm glad to hear it. So what is the work that you've done under the grant so far, and what should we expect next from Cohesive Robotics?
For sure, yeah. So we actually completed our grant work earlier this year. At the beginning of this year, we finished that up. And we were actually able to go from our prototype system to the full work cell design. So we did a series of industrial design iterations, design for manufacturing improvements, to really develop a work cell that can be easily configured and customized for each customer deployment. And for us, it was really important to develop a system that can meet the needs of a lot of applications out there, a lot of manufacturer workflows, especially, without needing to incur a lot of non-recurring engineering costs from project to project. And I think that's really important to make these technologies accessible to smaller manufacturers without having extremely expensive project costs and deployments. So, that's what that grant went towards. Definitely accelerated our ability to get that to market and start deploying it to manufacturers, and especially in New York.
Good. So, David, last question, an easy one. How does someone contact you if they'd like a demo or if they just want to learn more about your company and your technology?
Absolutely, Steve. Yes, they can certainly go to our website, cohesiverobotics.com, and then submit a request demo or request information submission. Or they can email us at info@cohesiverobotics.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Instagram as well, so they can reach us through a variety of those channels. And we're looking to do more webinars and trade shows later this year as well. We'll be at the FabTech show down in Orlando in October, so please stop by and chat with us there as well.
Fantastic. And David, thank you so much for being part of New York State Manufacturing Now.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. So we've been talking to David Pietrocola, the founder and CEO of Cohesive Robotics, a New York City company that's making it easy for manufacturers to add robotics to their high-mix sanding, grinding, and polishing operations. David has been a power user of New York MEP resources, and we at FuzeHub are eager to help other inventors and entrepreneurs like you succeed. That's why I'm inviting you to check out FuzeHub's Product Development Fundamentals Workshop. It's on August 7th, 2024. This hands-on, day-long event in New Paltz, New York will help demystify the entrepreneurial process and provide you with resources that can help along the way. So check it out. Go to FuzeHub.com/product-development-fundamentals. And if you didn't get that URL, don't worry. Just go ahead and email us at info@FuzeHub.com. So on behalf of FuzeHub and New York State Manufacturing Now, this is Steve Melito signing off.